find yourself in that confrontation, it is so important to act first. That's just real. Like, there's a reason why all of our uniforms are blanked out right now, and we're not saying where we work for, because this is not your departmental policy. You're never going to get your supervisor to tell you when you think you're threatened, you got nowhere to go. Like, so I mean, you can retreat. Retreat is an option. You can leave. But if you're in the back of an ambulance going down the road at 60 miles per hour and that starts going sideways, hit them and keep hitting them until they don't stop moving.
Tough book to the face.
Absolutely. Tough book, like the old radio, the oxygen cylinder is an excellent one.
Yeah. The stream light, blinding him, hitting him. That's a good melee weapon.
18 gauge catheter to the neck.
The raptor shears are nice, whether you're stabbing or you're holding them like at knuckles.
Yep.
Hit him with the spike on the top of the head.
Believe it or not, I had to do that in the hospital.
Yeah.
This guy, he was from one of the streets, the jails. That's Coinder Street downtown.
Okay.
And he wanted to call his mom, but he also didn't want to take his meds. And he was like, hey, bro, I know it's your mom's birthday, but you got to take your meds because you are on 10 right now. And so I was like, look, I'm gonna go get the phone. I'm gonna give you a few minutes to talk to your mom. His demented ass took that as, ain't nobody gonna tell me how long I'm gonna talk to my mom on the phone. So next thing I know, double doors work like shit. He's standing right at my computer, basically from that door here to me. And I'm like, okay. So at that point, my trauma shears are in my hand, behind my back, waiting. Because I'm like, I'm not going to push it because all he wants to do is just go back. That's where he wanted to go. He wanted to go back to jail. He didn't care about behavioral health. He was like, I am institutionalized. He basically told me with his body language, I am institutionalized. My brain does not work right. I am not going to abide by the social contracts that everybody else has decided to operate by. And I will go back to jail by hook or crook. So at that point, you told me everything. There's no de-escalation here. It's either I go home dead, or I slit your throat, or either the cops show up and you just go back to jail. That's the only three options. And the thing is, hospital execs, chiefs, anybody who's in a higher position of, let's just say, making protocols, they don't see the reality of these situations. They see the perfect storm of these realities. Well, did you try this? Well, did you try? There is no.
What could you have done different?
Yeah. There is.
Why was this your fault?
This is the situation, and this is what it is. Well, you couldn't talk. Have you ever talked to someone who's been institutionalized? There's no talking to them. It's either they're going to do what they're going to do, and they're okay with doing it because they want to go back to jail.
And like as an aside, there's the diagnosis of ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. That is literally a medical diagnostic diagnosis. It essentially means you're a dick, and it's a diagnostic criteria.
Yeah.
And you usually see it in like adults age 18 to 30, and they legitimately just like to fight. And like the most violent offenders I've ever had in the hospital are all ODD. But what you said brings home a point. In the hospital, to me, has been the single most violent environment that I've ever worked in. And to like give the background is I spent 20 years as a fireman paramedic. 10 of those years I was also a police officer. I was on the SWAT team. I kicked doors with the United States Marshal Service. All of that. And the most violent environment I've ever worked in is the emergency department. I have put more hands on more people more often. I've seen more of my coworkers struck and assaulted there than anywhere else. Now, granted, they're just beat up heavily, whereas the police officers are shot to death. But the nurses are just getting kicked, hit, maimed, spit on, punched the entire time. And one of the things that I've noticed is because perpetrators feel safer in a hospital. One of the reasons I'm convinced they feel safer is whenever they look around, even with someone with like large shoulders, they're in scrubs. Scrubs are just non-threatening. They're designed to be non-threatening. So there's no what we call officer presence, because officer presence is the first use of force. Whenever you show up on scene and your uniform is crisp and you are put together and you are, well, they say, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and alert, that automatically lets the person you're talking to know that you're very serious, and that's a level of person that they're going to need to have to decide they want to mess with. And that helps. I can tell you that if you show up as an emergency responder and your uniform is crisp, even at 3 in the morning, and you don't look like a slop shit sandwich with your shoes untied and your t-shirt out and all this going on, I understand it's exhausting. It's a 24-hour gig. I did it for 20 years. But whenever you show up with your uniform on right, people will listen to what you have to say, and they'll think that you're in charge, and they'll give you that respect. And that first moment of impact will do a lot to diffuse a lot of situations after that. But in the hospital, they're more apt to strike because there's just not that intimidation factor. Even the security that are at the hospital are hamstringed. If they have real police officers, armed police officers, they're not held to the same threat matrix engagement that law enforcement is held to.
They have to protect first.
Yep, they protect first, and like literally they all know that they could be crucified and fired at the moment's hat. They're sacrificial lambs.
And I've witnessed it. I've witnessed security officers, if their hands are extended out, you going from here to here, that's a fireable offense.
Yeah, and that's not fun to have a job where your job's not super secure. And I've talked with a few hospital security officers that have been fired and worked at different locations where they're out of the business completely. It's not fun to be like, oh, I was trying to protect the nurses and techs. And
we've had retired police officers who were security officers downgrade themselves to sit.
Yeah.
Wow. Because they don't want to deal with it.
Wow.
They rather just sit and watch a patient in their retirement years than actually be useful. Because they're not going to get fired.
That sucks. And I would say, I mean, I know way more of the nurses get assaulted than the fire EMS people.
Oh, yeah.
And like to have such a low protection factor on your side because it's security so hamstring. That sucks, dude.
Yeah. Because I mean, the thing is, like, cops are always fighting because that's the role that they have in society, right? They show up, they have to maintain control, they have to, they have to address situations. They're trained on how to escalate things, necessarily escalate things in order to actually make things safer. That's the goal. We want to establish control. But then you've got fire EMS, and again, 20 years on the fire EMS side, rare, incredibly rare. And then if it did happen, it was usually like I had like 5 guys ready to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the infamous day where I think it was, I don't know, someone at Station 2 was calling out for help. And I'm like, I'm in the area, I'll respond. And it was a dangerous situation. They were saying they were getting attacked. And the battalion chief came across the radio and was like, Med 2, or was it Med 8, stand down. And I'm like, no. That was a good write-up. But I was like,
because we do what we want to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like at the end of the day, like we're all grown adults, or as they say, like we are all grown men, and I will leave as much of a man as I arrived as a man. And you have to make those decisions ahead of the time. You can't make those decisions in the moment. You have to know what you're willing to do.
Your fundamentals have to be cemented before. You know?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And the interesting thing is, a buddy of mine, not the one who used to work here, but he's done stunts. We used to do pit wrestling back when that was a thing in Atlanta. Back when we were teenagers, and that was one thing we all talk about all the time is what is your tactical preset. And not to say that, this paramedic didn't have any, but my tactical preset, when I'm walking the halls of the hospital, even going to work, I'm thinking, somebody was to pop out on me right now, just take them down.
Yeah.
I'm playing these things every day of my life. My wife will tell you. She'll see me just staring off into space, and she'll be like, hey, babe, what you thinking about? Oh, somebody just tried to set the gas station. I just had to, basically wrap their neck with the gas holes in there, because that's all I had, and then you pulled out the gun, and then we ended it all. Like, that's all day long. Hey, Dad, you happy? Yeah, I'm feeling good. What you thinking about? Well, I'm thinking about this, we were walking down the street, That's my preset. My preset is go home.
Yeah, it's a hypervigilance mindset.
It's go home. My head is always on a swivel. So in the hospital, a lot of times they look to us, former firemen, medics, to say they look to us for safety. And that's like something that I teach my son. I'm like, nah, you have a duty. Your duty is to be a male presence in society, so that person who wanted to pop off thinks twice about it. When we all go out to a bar, wherever we have been in the past, there's somebody there who thought 4 times about popping off. Because they was like, they looked like they had an interesting week. And I really don't feel like getting my head cracker thrown down the stairs. Because these 3 dudes right here, they just look, and even if you don't have the skill, look the part. Like what Robert was saying, when you are put together, when a certain chief shows up on the scene in the middle of the night and y'all been out there for 30, 40 minutes trying to deal with this psycho, and that certain person walks up, you know, all right, y'all done fucked up now.
Yeah, I mean, you
Mr.
got
Chris
the
rule, he knows all the rules and he knows how to violate yours. And you're screwed now.
yeah.
And they know when to get in line. Everybody knows it's the presence of men, and then that's also something that has to be talked about at a later date. When you remove certain types of men from society, these types of people feel more empowered. And we have to get back to just the simple thought that if a well-established, let's say, protector is there, he is there so everybody else thinks twice. And that is the simple form of where we are in society. No one is thinking twice because we remove the men. Or either they've gone and they've put their capes away.
Yep.
It's like the Batman of saying, no.
No, that would have been a comedian.
No.
Yes, a comedian.
But
there you go.
In nursing and techs and stuff, and fire EMS, you definitely have people that look like warriors, and you have people that look like pairs, and that's okay. You have all shades, but when stuff goes bad, who has the capability to intervene, and who would fall over with 1 HP damage. Be done for the whole scuffle. And that's why I've heard stories from both of y'all being like they like when I'm on shift because they know when stuff breaks bad, I'm a reliable resource.
Correct.
And I'm not going to hesitate to help the nurses, the new 22-year-old nurses that have worked at Chick-fil-A in high school and have not seen repeat offender homeless Joe that comes in, and there's no rhyme or reason to what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Yep. And like I said, I know I've skated a lot of the line. Like my last shift in New York, I absolutely, we'll say, caused a patient to bleed out of his nose is the best way to put that. But that's because he was in an active fight with 4 security guards and managed to break free from the security guards and laid his hands on a mom, a nurse who was a new mother who was still like breastfeeding and had literally just returned to work and had only been there for like 3 weeks. So she's still like all sweet and kind and was like great. She was a great charge nurse. And he literally grabbed a hold of her, and finally I just said, fuck this. And legitimately went up and did the old cop takedown where you roll the ball. So he didn't see me coming because he's scrapping with the other officers. And I immediately moved to control his head with extreme prejudice and violence. Knife hand to the nose, rolled the ball to the back, stuck my knee on his chest, took the narcotics and literally stabbed him in his arm while I literally was holding him down by his nose, and the other security officers were able to get his legs. And I was literally standing on the bed with my knee on his chest, grinding that rich hand directly into this tiny little bone right here. And it has to happen that way. Like at a certain point, man, fuck this. And I was like, if you want to fire me, man. But like this is ridiculous. And the background on that patient, going back to what I said earlier, he was a known combative, violent patient. They pulled numerous weapons off of him. They did it every single time he came into the ED. He would fake a seizure, have a pseudo seizure, and then use that as an excuse to pick a fight. They actually came and warned me about it. Like, Robert, we're going to make this patient yours because we know you know how to handle yourself.
Seen it happen.
And he always comes in and fights. And within 10, I already had the drugs drawn up. And within 10 minutes, there he is. He's scrapping with security guards. I'm down for letting the security guards do their job. That's fine. That's not what I'm there for. But once it gets past them, I'm going to drop them.
Yeah.
And like I'm going to move very quick and very viciously.